and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. I hope you're all doing very, very well. This is a video in which I wrap up the second half of my reading in August. So this is the last 1, 2, 3, 4, I think it's 5 books that I read in August. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, because one was an audiobook that I read in the second half of August. So I will link below the video which talks about the books that I read in the first half of August. And yeah, let's get kicking. Let's get kicking. Do people say that? First book is Brown Baby by Nikesh Shukla. This is a proof copy. This is a memoir that Nikesh has written about his life, and it's addressed to his daughter, very much with his mother in mind. And he writes this in second person, as I said, addressed to his daughter, which and the language and stuff that he uses is so gentle in a way that you would expect a father to speak to his daughter, that it just felt very sort of well, gentle is the word I would probably use. Gentle and genuine and full of like love and stuff. I really enjoyed the cookery parts in here that Nikesh talks about, particularly the relationship like him and his mother had with food and things. But also I found it very sort of, well, real, I guess. The last conversation Nikesh had with his mother before she died was an argument, and that plays a big part here, and it's something that really plays on Nikesh's mind. And I think it just serves as a reminder that sometimes the relationship with death or with people that have died, you don't always have just like fully beautiful, wonderful memories of what a good person they were. Like, he talks about his mother's flaws and this argument that they'd had in particular, and addresses them like as you would a person who is living. And I just found that very refreshing and interesting. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed this much more than I thought I was going to. I don't know what I thought I was going to get from it, but yeah, I'm not normally a big lover of books that are written in second person. I find them quite clunky, but yeah, this just seemed to flow very well, and I very much enjoyed it. So yeah, would highly recommend. Gave that 4 stars. Next up was an audiobook, and it was Blackout, and this is by a collection of different authors, including Nicola Yoon, Nick Stone, Tiffany D. Jackson, and it is a collection of love stories, YA love stories set in a blackout in New York City. And I got very big sort of like Let It Snow vibes from this, but with definite better sort of characters and storyline and definite better representation. And yeah, all of the stories sort of like slightly interlink, and just slightly in terms of like character names or places that they're driving past and things like that. But threaded through this was a story by Tiffany D. Jackson, who I've read 2 of her books before, both of which very harrowing, dealing with very serious topics such as coercion and child child neglect. So this story, to hear a love story written from Tiffany D. Jackson's point of view, was enjoyable, and I enjoyed reading some sort of like of her writing which was lighter, and I enjoyed that. And that story was threaded through sort of like in parts, which I found very interesting. I don't think I've ever read a short story collection where they've got a short story that runs throughout in different parts, so that was enjoyable as well. But definitely, if you're a big fan of Let It Snow, as David is, I think this would really go down well with you. And as I said, the sort of the stories and the diversity and stuff, it's just bit better in this. So yeah, give it a go if you enjoyed Let It Snow. Next up, big massive book and a big massive 5 stars. This is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. This is a book that we read for my Patreon book club, and I've been really looking forward to reading it, and it just delivered so much. As I've already spoiled, I gave this 5 stars. I just found it fantastic. What I will say, one word that I feel like sums this up for me, is just sort of immersion and involvement. I've never felt so involved in a book as I did this. Now, the book itself is about, it's set in 2 sort of time zones, with a school called Brookhaunts, a girls' boarding school called Brookhaunts, where two girls, Flo and Clara, are found dead following a wasp attack, wasps, and they have a copy of a book with them, and then following that, more deaths happen at the school, and sort of some strange happenings go on around the school. And then we're also following a modern day storyline, whereby they are making a film about the happenings at Brookhaunts that happened at the beginning of the 1900s. So yeah, so sort of like a historical fiction vibe, sort of modern gothic contemporary mystery vibe, just like so many styles of writing done in here that I really loved. And yeah, I was really gripped. Now, something that happens throughout the book that made me feel as involved as it did is that there's lots of these little like, I won't be able to find any of them now, but throughout, oh, here we go. So there's lots and lots of little footnotes where the author is speaking directly to you, and some of them are sort of quite sassy. When we were talking about it at, during book club, somebody likened it to Gossip Girl, which is something that I've never seen before, but so many people were like, oh my God, that is exactly what it's like. So yeah, you're sort of like being spoken to as an aside and things like that. There's also, so as I said, there's a modern Gothic vibe, but like that extends to like the illustrations that are in the book and stuff. So the illustrations are done in quite a classic way and quite a creepy way, and some of the illustrations it's just, they're a bit unsettling in that you can't, I'm trying to find one now, you can't always see like people's faces or here we go, here's one. So this is the three girls who are involved in the filming of the new film, and like, yeah, you can't always see their faces, or sometimes they look quite skeletal, and that just sort of like adds to the unsettling sort of nature to it. There's also lots in here with like scripts and things like that. So although it's a big book, it read really fast for me, and yeah, I just sort of like loved the flick. Like, it really kept you on your toes, the flicking between the time zones and the characters and the different sort of multimedia aspects, and then slinging a drawing, an illustration in there as well. Like, I really loved it. Like, as I said, it is a big book. It's 617 pages, but it really, and it did take me like 2 weeks to read, but I think I thrived and sort of like indulged myself in it because I was just so immersed and it was just so enjoyable. I haven't had a reading experience that I felt so involved in such a long time, and I really loved it. Also, this front cover is probably my favourite front cover of all time. Bright colours, pink and yellow, and then that big wasp on the front. I just think it looks fantastic. If you are looking for an investment piece, then definitely go for this. I cannot recommend it enough. Gave it 5 stars, really loved it. Interestingly though, in book club, like, it wasn't, not everybody loved it. Some people found it quite draggy, quite dry, but yeah, we still had a really good chat about it, as always. And it's interesting, isn't it, when you have a book club book and some people love it and some people don't, because I feel like that's when you get the best conversations. But yeah, this really got under my skin. It's really stayed with me. And even when I was away from the book, I was sort of thinking, oh, like, what would be going on and things like that. I loved it. I thought it would be brilliant. This would be an amazing TV series. Hopefully they'll do that. So yeah, great. Next up is a collection of short stories. This is What She's Having, Stories of Women and Food. This is a collection of, as it says on the tin, short stories and non-fiction short pieces, I believe they call them essays, about women and food, published by Dear Damsels. This appeared in my video that I made saying surely these books are going to be 5 stars, because this has an ingredient combination, see what I did because it's about food, of women and food and sort of like short pieces of fiction and non-fiction. I love food fiction and I love food non-fiction. Like, I just love it. And yeah, I gave it 4 stars. So it didn't get the 5 stars that I expected it to do. That is no slight on it. Like, it's a brilliant book and a brilliant collection. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, what's not to like? Food, women, fantastic writing. I enjoyed the fiction of non-fiction and the way they were sort of classed together in different collections. I'm just trying to find one sort of section here. Obviously, I won't be able to do that. What sections are they done in? Come on, let me tell you. Oh, so like In the Kitchen, Store Cupboard, Meals for One, Split the Bill, and Taste Buds. So the short stories and the essays are collected in there. The only thing that knocked it down for a start for me, and as I said, like, don't let this guide you unless you feel like this might be something that, because this really was fantastic, but there were some pretty gross meat references in there, and as someone who is a vegetarian, there was just some bits in there I was like, oh no, I did not want to read that, which is completely personal. And I think if I had been a meat, I don't know if I still would have found them gross, even if I'd have been a meat eater. There's 2 particular references, and if you've read this, it's the references that they make to steak in one of them and a reference that they make to eating crab in another one. But yeah, it just grossed me out a little bit. And that's why it got a 4 star rather than a 5 star. But like I said, really enjoyed it, thought it was brilliant. And then the last book I read in August was Whatever Happened to Interracial Love. These are stories by Kathleen Collins, a collection of short stories which were published after Kathleen's untimely death. She died in the late 60s. She died in 1988. aged just 46, and these stories were written in the in the late 60s, the early 70s, and they were published after her death. So what I will say about this, and I addressed this when I read about this, when I read the first story of this, when I did a reading short stories video. I read the first short story of in 3 collections of short stories and decided which ones I wanted to read. But these are so new and fresh, and like, they'd really been written, it felt like to me like they've been written really recently. There's stuff in there about dating, which felt very relevant. There's stuff in there, like the first story called Exteriors, felt like it was almost talking about sort of Instagram and Instagram filters and stuff like that, which it obviously wasn't. They were written in like the 60s and 70s. But yeah, so I really enjoyed them as I read them. However, and I feel like, again, this is a personal thing, but like with short stories, I really struggle to go back, and I think it might be because the time spent with them. And I've schooled myself in reading short stories in that I always finish a short story if I start it, and then I leave a bit of time before I start the next one so that they don't sort of like bleed into each other, which is particularly what happens when you're reading a collection of short stories by one author. But yeah, looking back at these now, I'm looking at the title of some of the essays, The Happy Family, Treatment for a Story. I don't really remember what they're about, and like I said at the beginning of the year, I've given myself a thing where if a book is forgettable for me, it can't score more than 2 stars. So whilst I enjoyed it at the time, and I never remember thinking, oh, I've got to pick that up, like I always thought, oh yeah, great, another story. Yeah, I just don't remember them very well, so annoying for me. So yeah, those are the 5 books that I read in the second half of August. As I said, I will link below the video where I talk about what I read in the first half of August. I hope you're all having a lovely Friday, and I'll see you all again soon for another booktube video. Goodbye!